I'm Barry Hansen, fisheries biologist for the Salish and Kootenai tribes, and we're at Flathead Lake. We're going to describe the process we have here to restore native fish. And the problem we're dealing with is that lake trout, introduced over 100 years ago, then combined with mysis shrimp, introduced about 50 years ago, together resulted in a excessive abundance of lake trout. It's a top predator and severely preyed upon native cutthroat and bull trout. With the decline in those fish, we saw the need to address the problem, bring about a recovery of those native fish, and to do that we have to reduce lake trout abundance. We do that by two methods. One is using the public in angling contests, for example, Mac Days fishing contests, and the other is through gill netting. And what we'll see today is our gill netting effort. Behind me is our gill netting boat, a 38-foot boat designed specifically for this work. We're here on a September day after having fished throughout the summer, and the surface water of Flathead Lake is still fairly warm in the 60s. But we're fishing at the bottom of the lake where it's closer to 39 degrees. And we're today fishing a small mesh net which catches the smaller lake trout. And they're coming up out of 39-degree water, and we put them directly on ice and then take them into the fish processing facility. We have a goal to harvest 143,000 per year, which our research indicates will bring about a nearly complete recovery of the native fish. That's our overall challenge. Something that is, I think, very supportive and exciting about this particular fishery is that these fish we're harvesting are causing a problem. Therefore, removing them is beneficial to the ecology of the lake, but it also is important to consumers that eat these fish, because in comparison to other fisheries, especially the ocean fisheries, where there's so much demand for healthy fish, that there's enormous pressure and exploitation, and typically then those fisheries are driven down and down. In this case, we're striving to drive this particular fishery down to benefit the native fish. And therefore, from a consumer perspective, consuming these fish can be done without contributing to ecological problems, but in fact supporting the ecology, and can be done then with a clear conscience and with the best ethics.
Hello, my name is Cindy Benson. I am the fisheries specialist for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. This is our Filet Machine that we use to process the lake trout that we bring in out of Flathead Lake. The process is that you start on the far end, heads are taken off of the fish, they're fed into the machine, and two fillets will come out this end. There's a belly blade that will cut the belly open. There's a blade that will bring the guts out. They'll fall into the tray and come out into this bin. And we have the two processed fillets right there. There you can see how they come out of the machine. It takes the rib blades off, rib bones off. Sometimes we do have to cut a few rib bones off, and then we also pin bone by hand. And at the end, we have a boneless fish fillet, lake trout from Flathead Lake. This process and the machine is all done under Native Fish Keepers Incorporated, which is a corporation formed under the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribal Council, and it is ran as a nonprofit organization. Barry's going to show how we trim up the fillets, take the pin bones off, and get them ready to be packaged for market. He's trimming the belly off of the fish. We square up the tail, And then we carefully take the pin bones out. On the smaller fish, I don't take the pin bones out, but on these larger ones you want to take pin bones out. Then let's weigh this fillet and see what that fillet weighs. That fillet comes in at 4.7. The flesh of these fish has changed over the years. It used to be white, but since they've been eating the mysis shrimp, they accumulate that pigment and it transfers into their flesh, and so they look more like a salmon. Makes them more appetizing.
These are completed lake trout fillets. They have the orange color largely from their diet of mysis shrimp. They have been trimmed all around and pin bones removed, so it's a boneless fillet. These average about 4.5 ounces. They're from the low end of the size structure of lake trout. They are in the, say, 14 to 18 inch fish. And generally, restaurants and other markets are looking for larger fillets in the 8 ounce or greater. So these are about half the size of the more commonly marketed fillets. These then should be ideal for a school program, and important to mention, to be aware, mercury is everywhere in the environment, and it's taken up through the aquatic food web. Lake trout, of course, then also take it up. All fish have mercury, and lake trout, especially the larger ones, have quite a lot of mercury. The value of these smaller fish is that they're on a mysis diet, they're young, so they haven't accumulated that much mercury. It's important for all consumers to be aware of the fish they consume and the frequency that they consume them. But these are a relatively safe product that brings all the healthy aspects of fish, the omega-3s, the valuable fatty acids that are so important for heart and other development. In addition to the important conservation value that comes from harvesting these fish and people consuming them to help sustain the program of harvest, we also think it's important to know that these are as fresh a fish as you can get. Every day we're pulling our nets, the fish go directly on ice on the boat, and then they're shuttled from the boat to this facility, and they're filleted, then trimmed as you see here. Then they go to the vacuum packer and into the flash freezer where they're held at -10. So from the water to the freezer is typically less than 4 hours.